All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is so good to be back here. We are the Mavericks of Mallard Creek Book Study Team here to talk about effort today. It's our third podcast in our 5 podcast series, G.R.E.A.T. And let's start by letting everyone introduce themselves. And we are super excited to have our first ever, not last, but first ever guest on our podcast. So we'll let him introduce himself at the very end. All right, let's go around. Andrew Brissy, Book Study Team Captain.
I'm Simeon Forehand. I am one of the coordinators.
My name is Aiden Wynn. I handle logistics.
My name is Maya Chambers. I am the leadership.
My name is Morgan Bradley, and I handle being first sergeant.
I am Jada Billen. I handle our marketing.
And my name is Ray Sean Torrance, and I'm the special guest.
Ray Sean, could you tell us just a little, whether it's stuff you like to do outside of school, any extracurriculars you participate in, any fun hobbies you have? Just let the audience get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, sure thing. I love my sports that I do. I love cross country. I also participate on my school's wrestling team. I also love spending time with friends, being outdoors, most definitely, and I would say exercising.
All right, awesome. So let's dive into it. Starting with effort. What do we have about effort so far?
Well, we use the principles of knowledge, honesty, and talent to ultimately connect Ben Carson's Think Big idea to our effort from G.R.E.A.T.
Actually, I have something. Oh, thank you. Actually, in the chapter Carson talks about for talent and stuff, he states that the NBA stars don't say, "Yes, I have a lot of talent. I also happen to be in the right place at the right time. Much of what happened to make me famous didn't have much to do with my talent." So I think that's really interesting that he compares talent with effort in a way.
I like how he contrasts it. He says how much of what he's accomplished and his success isn't all due to, or most of it even isn't all due to his natural abilities and his natural talent. I really think that connects to like the pursuit of knowledge, not like even if you're naturally smart, thinking of like academically and stuff, but the pursuit of knowledge is like bigger than just sitting around being like, oh, I got that because I automatically know the material, but it's also like, oh, I have to go study, I have to go do these things. He's a doctor, so obviously he couldn't just whip it up and be like, oh yeah, now I'm a doctor. So he had to go actually find that knowledge, and I think that really connects to effort.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, let me go ahead and open up the floor to Ray Sean or to the rest of our group with a starting question of how do you like to stay motivated when the task that you're passionate about or pursuing gets hard or boring? Because consistency and a lot of times success takes that consistency. It can be very repetitive over long periods of time. So how can you fight through that repetition and stay motivated?
Some ways to stay motivated that I figured, with, for instance, with my sport wrestling, after a while of wrestling, it could start to get mentally draining. It's just like the same repetitions every day, the same reps that we're doing, the same exercises. It could start to get, a bit boring and a bit draining. But what I find that keeps me like entertained and motivated is that why did I start doing this in the first place? Why did I want to do this in the first place? There's a goal in the beginning and there's a goal in the end, and until I reach that goal, I know that there's still progress to be made. There's still something left to be done.
I kind of feel the same way to you. I remind myself why I'm doing it, what's motivating me, what am I working towards, and how badly do I want the thing that I'm working towards.
First, I would just like to say I think it's really interesting how you pointed out entertaining, like something that you find entertaining is going to motivate you because finding joy in things, I think is a really big part. But I think that's sometimes what I try to do, find something that I like in doing it, not just doing it because I set the goal. But also reminding myself, kind of, I talked about this in a previous episode, but thinking about little Morgan and how she would want me to be and what she would want for her goals. So that's kind of what keeps me motivated when I think about my goals and effort.
I'd like to say like in my extracurricular, which is marching band, which I'm a part of, I learned from my directors like that when things get hard, you can't back off or like completely give up, and that if you're doing something, you should give all of your percentage, all 100%, rather than 50, 75, because half doing something, they compared it to literally it not being done at all. So that's where I get my motivation from. Literally either committing to something fully or just getting in a different mindset for a different time.
That's awesome. I really liked how Rayshawn mentioned goals, like remembering why you're doing what you're doing. So when I'm swimming, it's really quiet in the pool, so I'm kind of left with my own thoughts. And when I'm swimming, it gets kind of boring sometimes, especially when I'm swimming longer events. But just remembering what I'm doing, like why I'm doing that, it just helps me stay motivated.
Yeah.
I was actually, before I explain how I work with effort and everything, I was wondering, what do you do when you've already reached your goals? Because I've been thinking about this for a little bit, and you were mentioning that sometimes you go through these moments where you're kind of like, yeah, this hurts, or I don't really feel like doing this, but I have to keep going to reach that goal. When you reach that goal, what do you do after that?
Um, I was I was gonna build off of what Ray Sean said, and then you asked that question, and then it got me thinking. So we did just celebrate a new year. New Year's brings New Year's resolutions. It's a great time of reflection and setting of goals, which are all things we're talking about. That's why I personally do love the New Year. So going back to Ray Sean, I love yeah, again. He talked about his why. That's important. But then also he started talking about goals, and I started thinking about what did I write down for my New Year's resolutions. And when I do my resolutions, it's more than just a couple of things I want to fix in my habits, more than just goals, but I also include like my identity, things I won't do. And so it's a really big process for me because it kind of focuses where I will go for the entire year. But I noticed that from last year to this year, a lot of the stuff was not that different, but it was kind of elevated. So last year I wanted to be all conference in wrestling. This year I want to qualify for states in wrestling. You see what I'm saying? But I was looking at a lot of the consistencies between my goals, and I realized it's because sometimes my effort's not just of reaching a certain number. Like it was a really easy goal last year to set. I want to get this number on my ACT, and that is one type of goal. Yes, but then also when I really think about things that motivate me, sometimes it's like the goals that are more like visions of. So in the 10 years from now, I want to have a family and a house where I can live comfortably with a job. Like those type of identity goals, like those really keep me motivated. And if those overarching goals, they then trickle down into smaller goals that even when you accomplish those easier short-term goals, you always have something further to go because you're not just chasing a certain amount of money. You're not just chasing a certain number of wins or losses, but you're actually chasing an identity. I was to think that was something I was thinking about over this new year, and I'm glad that we're having this podcast at the same time. Does anyone kind of relate to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely think that thinking about your goals like that, it's also very important to put effort into thinking about the other factors that come into it. So, you were talking about how it was easier to, reach your goal last year, and then, thinking about how you would this year. But I know you're talking about mentally draining and things that were getting hard and repetitive for you. So, thinking about like if there's something that you don't necessarily love or something that's beginning to get harder, or you have other clubs to think of, or if you're in a sport, you have academics to think of, especially juniors, seniors, really any grade, but thinking of the other factors and then also realistically setting your goals, putting effort into that is very important because, you have SMART goals and stuff like that. That acronym is really important, really big in schools, and thinking about it like realistically setting. I can't, oh, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to go to Harvard, but that's not a realistic, that's a goal, but it's not a realistic goal because while I may be putting in the effort or smart enough or whatever, there are other things at play. I'm still in high school, so that's not how that really works. But I do relate to that most definitely.
I also think a lot of the goals we set are long term, even when we don't think about it. Like, I'm going to get an A on this, but because I get an A on this, now my GPA is going to be boosted. And then it's going to benefit me when I graduate. Like, a lot of our short-term goals, they lead to our long-term, and we don't realize it when it's happening. Because especially like as we get older, a lot of us, we're growing. We're all juniors, seniors. A lot of the goals that we set in the past are benefiting us now more than ever, especially since we're graduating. And then once we do graduate, we've got to set more goals, and we've got to keep pushing and put an effort towards newer goals and newer pathways. I think that it starts with things like this podcast. We're talking about what effort we're putting in. We can use what we learn here to keep pushing effort into the future and keep pushing towards different goals and pushing towards our future. And like you said, you wanted to have a family one day, and it starts here. I mean, like we're still young, so we're still thinking about how we're putting in effort and how we're pushing towards different things. But I did have a question I wanted to ask everyone. Why do you think effort is more important than natural ability? This is for everyone.
Why I think effort is more important than natural ability is that, you can have a guy that's really talented at something, come in, be really good at it, but a person who wants to be there and is willing to put in that effort and willing to put in that work to whatever that craft may be, I feel that that's going to be the person that's going to become, more successful at whatever that sport or job may be. I feel that, you know a talented person, take it as like this: a talented person, they come in every day, they're really good at it, so they're probably not training as much. Oh, I'm really good, I don't have to do that, I don't have to do this. But the person that wants to be there, I feel like that's the person
Right.
that's putting in that work, and that's gonna eventually become more better than the talented person.
Anyone else for that question?
I do. I think there's
You
some.
don't like.
There's a very famous and popular basketball player, and let me know if you remember this story. But he went out for, I think it was his freshman year. He went out for his basketball team, and then he didn't get on the team. And then he trains super hard, and then he gets on the team the next year, the next season. But I think it's really important to note that it's a success story, because now he's in the NBA, he's playing. It's a success story, but it wasn't luck. It wasn't. It was effort, because he trained, he practiced, he put in more work than he did before. The other people, they may practice, they may train. Not saying that they don't, but saying that they may have a more natural ability, and the fact that he wanted to be there, he trained for it. That was his goal, and so he met that goal.
Honestly, this might be an interesting analogy to use. I guess analogy would be the word. But just today, I was in my class, and today someone was asking if they should cheat on their test because they were having a tough time studying, and because they just didn't understand the curriculum at all. And that kind of just made me think about how effort works nowadays, because I'm realizing that in schools nowadays, you feel like you have to like know certain things. I can't explain it. Like I can't.
I kind of understand. I kind of know. I kind of understand what you're saying. You feel this pressure to understand everything that's being thrown at you, and there's a lot of I'm a dual enrollment student. I have AP classes. I don't expect myself to automatically grasp every concept that I learn in every single class. Sometimes I have to go reteach myself at the end of the day, or sometimes I have to go talk to the teacher, or ask questions,
Right.
or even ask a friend sometimes. And I understand that studying is like a kind of like a hard thing to do, because sometimes we don't study the right way, and there's
Right.
other ways to do it, and there's other ways that work for different people.
Right.
But I completely understand what you're saying, that you don't automatically know, but I think that that's where the effort comes in to know, because you have the goals to get the A's or the B's, and you have the goals to get where you want. So putting in the effort like really has to come through there.
Yes.
I also think that there's kids that are naturally good at academics. They're naturally good from when they're young. They can breeze through any test, any assignment, and I feel like for the people that aren't naturally good, the ones that have to put effort into, when they get a good grade in an assignment, it gives them a sense of pride. But when you have that natural ability, and then you start failing because you realize you've had this natural ability this entire time, and now all of a sudden you're not doing well. Like you reach college and you're struggling to keep up. You don't study, because you had that natural ability the whole time you were in, elementary, middle, high school. So when you get to college and it's different, you're stuck.
Mhm.
Putting in that effort before it gets to that point, I feel like would make it a lot easier for a lot of different people, even people that have that natural ability. But putting in effort is something that everybody should take a point to do.
Exactly. I think natural talent's really important sometimes because it can get your foot in the door when it comes to like a sport or academics, as you were saying. So like say you were born like naturally smart, then you kind of grew up always acing those tests. But let's say someone who wasn't really blessed with like genetically academics, let's say they started studying really hard. Most of the time, if not all the time, they're gonna outshine the person with natural talent because most of the time the person with natural talent sometimes they can a lot of people get burned out because sometimes they just get kind of bored of school. So I feel like effort's definitely really important compared to natural talent.
No, I really like what you said right there. I would say the word that I was looking for when you were talking about the talent versus the the effort kind of path is that over time I think it will outpace the talent because like you said the talent will get bored. There will be levels where talent can't take you everywhere. Like no matter how good you are at, you were talking about basketball, even school. Like your talents in school will can get you to college. I believe that, but to thrive in college, you have to be able to study. To thrive in college basketball, you can not practice in high school, and if you're really good, you just grew up good at basketball, you can get to college sometimes. But to thrive in college basketball, and this is just an example, you have to practice, you have to effort. Um, Something I was listening to you guys all talk about, and I wrote down was I kept like talked about goals for a long time, and this effort's not about goals, but this episode's not about goals; it's about effort. So I was like, why do we keep bringing this up? And it's because when we're talking about success, the easy part is setting goals, but to accomplish goals, it takes effort. So I wrote down a formula: success equals goals plus effort. Goals is the easy part, effort's the hard part. And I think that that's because the reason it's hard is because it takes accountability, either personal accountability or peer accountability. And then discipline is, I think, the choice to do things when it gets hard. One of my favorite quotes is motivation is a feeling. So we're in the new year. Everyone has a lot of motivation right now. That's great. Take advantage of that. But when next August comes and we have those goals that still haven't been touched, that's going to take a choice of discipline. So the question I have for everyone is who or what keeps you accountable? And what is something in your life that takes the most discipline? It takes the greatest choice. You don't want to do it, but you do it. So I want to talk about discipline and I want to talk about accountability. Who would like to take it?
Um, I would say something or someone who keeps me accountable is God, first of all, because I think that I come back to Him at the end of the day. I talk to Him throughout my day, I'm thinking, hey, so I said I was going to do this morning, but I did not do this, and I told you I was going to do this, and I don't want to sit here and not do this, so let me go ahead and do this, and I just know that that's who keeps me accountable at the end of the day. And then I would also say my teachers, some of my teachers, like First Sergeant is a really big person who keeps me accountable. He's like, hey Bradley, you know better, you can do better. So I would definitely say that First Sergeant keeps me accountable.
Yeah, and to go off of what Morgan said, God most definitely keeps me accountable because when I start to realize that, you know, like it says in the Bible, laziness is a sin. And if I'm just sitting around all day, not doing nothing, I know like I could be doing something with my life. I'm just like sitting here, wasting away. And then also, I would say my family and friends, coaches as well, keep me accountable. And to an extent myself, because I know that Rayshawn wouldn't just sit there and not do nothing, because that's not something Rayshawn would do. I know Rayshawn would want to make something of himself and, you know, not just be wasting away. And not saying that you can't take a rest day, lays about, it's okay to, I feel that, have a rest day or whatever, play the game a little bit. But if that's just like, that just becomes a habit, I feel that that's where it starts to become a problem. Yes.
I would say same thing like you guys said. God and my family keep me accountable. You know, I grew up in a Christian household, and praying, I would say, it helps me the most. But also my mother. My mother keeps me accountable for almost everything I do and making sure I'm on the right track. But I think that believing in God in and of itself, going to church and doing that, it helps me center and it helps me kind of think of where I'm at and what I'm doing, or even just reading the Bible, not even going to church. It helps a lot with my day to day.
I agree with all of these because God also keeps me very grounded when it comes to giving effort or staying motivated for certain things, and mostly keeping commitment to that because commitment I feel like takes most of my effort and takes more motivation for me to do, especially from God because like you said, there's a lot of sins that people commit very often. Like, and I would like to. That was a goal for this year, actually, to commit more and to set way more time aside for God rather than doing things like schoolwork or extracurriculars because it was all there because of Him. So that's what I
Would you
like
say
to
that's a
believe.
discipline?
Yes, I would definitely. I like to discipline myself when it comes to um, reading His Word and incorporating that into my everyday life rather than just from time to time.
A lot of people keep me accountable, including my friends and family, but most importantly, my friends. I like how you mentioned that you keep yourself accountable. It's good to be kind of self-aware. But my friends, they keep me accountable. They push me to be better. If I'm ever not really doing anything, they call me up and we go do something instead of just sitting around doing nothing. So
That's awesome. You have really good friends. Um, one person, this is going to sound a little bit cringy, but one person who keeps me aware of how I'm doing with my effort and everything is future me. I sometimes like to look through future me's eyes and think back and think, why would you do that? Like looking through me in my eyes, seeing me sleep in 3 extra hours than I needed to. It's just embarrassing to look at. It's like, wow, would future me be proud of myself for doing something like that? Would future me be proud of myself for not taking up that craft or learning that instrument? Anything like that? I just like to think towards the future and think, would doing this help me in any way at all? Would it provide me with any satisfaction or any happiness? Or will it just either keep me where I am or make things worse for me? I don't know.
I really relate to that. I think I was talking about it earlier with identity, but that's a big part of uh, like what holds me accountable is my actions today matching the person I want to be tomorrow. I don't know if anyone's taken psychology, but cognitive dissonance is real. If I write down, I want to keep my body healthy, and that night it's not just one milkshake, but it's milkshake after milkshake, and then we don't get up the next day until late. We don't exercise. Like I look at my board, I look at my actions, and next thing you know, I feel terrible about myself. But I wanted to talk about this word of balance with this principle of effort. And now that I think about it, I like how I said not just one milkshake, but milkshake after milkshake. And I really want you to think about that because effort is not about perfection or constant destroying of your body or mind. It's about putting your energy in the right places at the right times. So say my goal was to make my body get in the best shape possible. It doesn't mean I'm never gonna touch a sweet. That doesn't mean Christmas comes and I refuse to hang out with my family because they have Christmas cookies, or I go out with my friends once a month and they get milkshakes, and now I'm saying no, I'm not even gonna go because I want to stay away from that stuff. That's not a way. That's not a healthy balance. But that does mean that if I write down I'm gonna go to the gym 5 days a week, I'll be in the gym 5 days a week. So I kind of want to hear: does any of you have any principles for any of your goals or any of your commitments? I know we have a lot of committed and strong-willed people in this room that help you to stay balanced, whether that's for your mental health, for your physical health, for your family. I know it's hard for me sometimes to balance all my commitments, my homework, the time I want to be with my friends or at the gym with my family time. So what are some principles that you guys use to keep your life balanced between a lot of effort towards your goals and pushing too far so that you are not um, keeping things in a healthy balance. That's kind of what I was trying to say.
Something that helps me know, I want to say kind of my limits. Like, for instance, to go off of what Brissy said, you know, I feel that like it's okay to have like a milkshake every time here and there, but when it's like every single like milkshake after milkshake after milkshake, in the same
Love the
sitting,
milkshakes.
yeah, and like in one sitting, it's like knowing your limits. Like this is not good for you. I feel that or like for instance when you're going out, this is an outing, I'm going out with family or friends. I feel like it's been a while, it's okay to if I treat myself to this, but when this is like I said before, when it becomes a habit it becomes a problem. And if this is going on consecutively, every single day, every single hour, every single minute, this can start to affect my body negatively or my thought process negatively. So like something that helps me with that is just knowing, know your limits, just you got to know your limits.
Um, I struggled a lot with planning, but not the lack of, but like more so I tried to plan out every block of my day, every block of my week. Um, I had so much in my planner, not just because I had so much on my schedule, but because I literally tried to plan out every minute. And a principle that keeps me really grounded is spontaneity is real. So I'm not always gonna know if Chambers is like, hey, you want to go to lunch, because that's a time of place kind of, hey, do you want to go right now? But I can't plan for that. I can't see into the future. So I had to remind myself that spontaneity is real. And if I try to plan for everything, then I'm going to feel terrible when she asks me out to lunch and I eat that Chick-fil-A sandwich. So I just have to remember that sometimes then I can say, hey, well, I can go out with you, but I can't do this. And something, just remembering that sometimes there are surprises in life.
That's so true, because health burnout is a real thing. You could be off sugar for a week and then you'll just feel like you're gonna pass out. It's the worst thing. Honestly, I feel like happiness isn't always, black and white or anything like that. Eating healthy doesn't always make you happy. I feel like everybody said, you need balance. You need to have, like, even just having healthy food or just having sweets. Neither of those are going to make you happy physically or mentally. Because I feel like we also need to mention our mental health as well. Because as much as our physical health matters, if we're not happy mentally, we're not going to be happy physically. I feel like that's really important. And if we end up becoming so burnt out on becoming healthier or becoming better at something, we're just going to become so burnt out that we just can't do anything at all. There was this one math equation I remember hearing. It was something like, it was 1 to the power of 369. That's 1.
Right.
But 1 to the power, 1.01 to the power of 365. That's about 50 something. It's just even a tiny little 0.01%, just one tiny little step can get you so much further. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I
Does
I
make
like
sense?
that. Yeah.
It's a silly equation, but it feels really important that even just a tiny little steps can bring us so much further. Like there's this Japanese philosophy called Kaizen. It's just one little step every single day can get you so far.
I love that. All right. So I love how we talked about balance, and my kind of answer to that question is I think it's a lot about priorities. And so it's kind of our freedom to choose when we apply what's the priority in this situation. So like when we were talking about the priority of health versus happiness, I thought that was really good because that's difficult sometimes, because you're right. If you eat only junk food, you're going to feel terrible. If you never indulge in some of the things that you love, you're going to miss out on some of those happy feelings, right? That got me thinking again. I want to go back to discipline. And when we're talking about joy or fulfillment, discipline is not easy in the moment, but it creates habits of delayed gratification, which does lead to not just happiness, but that fulfillment, like I was talking about. For those that are listening or those at the table that don't know, delayed gratification is simply the idea that if you make certain choices over and over again that aren't the easy choice, but over time can lead to whether it's an accomplishment, a success, and over time, by delaying the gratification of something that you want, you can actually get something that's of more value. So for me, that was I was struggling to go to wrestling practice for a long time. I did it, but it was something I was not extremely excited for every day. It was difficult, but I recently had success at one of our Elizabeth Berry tournament. I compete for a third place medal at this massive tournament against a kid that had already beaten me, and the feeling of winning that match made every difficult decision in the months prior worth it. And that reflects like the power that discipline has to bring true fulfillment to your life. I'm not saying that medal made my life fulfilled, but are we chasing quick dopamine rushes in TikTok, in fast food, in pleasurable experiences, or are we chasing fulfillment and joy, not just happiness in our life? And I think that that's what discipline and effort offers us that a lot of things in the world do not. So with that being said, if anyone has sorry, if anyone has any last thoughts that they think that the group would love to hear, let's definitely get those out, and then we can close out this episode. So, anyone?
Sure. To kind of go off of what Brissy said, chasing those fast dopamine rushes, it's like it's not about the medal. It's about, like he said, that kid beat him, and then Brissy was able to come back and beat the guy that beat him before. The fact that knowing that he got better within the span of time to a kid that beating him, like that just shows like, okay, wait, Brissy's getting better. I'm getting better, and I'm able to like, be the dude that was able to beat me. It's not, it's like, yeah, the medal's cool, but it's not about the medal. It's about, the progress to the medal, the effort that's put into that medal. And, the internet, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, these are like little quick dopamine rushes, but things that you take with you throughout life is something that you really sat there and put the effort into. I spent the time, like I didn't want to be there, but I went anyways, and I put that effort in, and then I was able to, um what's the word I'm looking for, I was able to prosper off of that. I was able to become a better version of me, and that just, not only improves myself as a person, but improves my mindset and the way I look at things and the way I think of things. Yeah.
We feel good, guys?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Feels good.
Well, thank you very much, Vaishon, our first ever guest, for joining us on this episode about effort. We really appreciate having you here. And to all our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope that you got something out of today's podcast. And in the future weeks, we're looking forward to coming to you with another one. Next one's about ambition. So stay tuned, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Happy New Year, everyone. We are so sorry we couldn't produce an episode in December due to technical issues. However, we will have episodes 3 and 4 out this month, so stay tuned.